Hello everyone. In this tutorial we are going to look at how we can deal with Excel files. So let's say you have an Excel file in your hands and you want to load it and display it in some application. And you already have the data in a grid and you want to export everything into an Excel file. So we're going to look at those two functionalities. So imagine that I have this Excel file. And here it's history, in this case, of some weather information with the address, location, latitude, longitude, and I want to load that into the application. So the first thing is going to be to design a data model that is aimed at displaying the information we want. So either we want to display everything, or we can decide to display a subset of this information. So here I have location, looks like the address, it seems to be a short version of the address. I have the temperature, the minimum and maximum temperature that day, seems to be from summer 22. The pressure in millibar, humidity, it's a percentage. The altitude sounds unreliable because it's always the same, so we will be tempted to skip that. And latitude, longitude maybe doesn't make a lot of sense to have the information in our app, so we can skip it, and maybe later on we want to plug a map into it, so we use the latitude and longitude to show it on the map. We don't know. So for the purpose of today's example, let's say we're going to choose the address, the temperature, and the humidity. So simple data model, right? And possibly the date, so we know when the record comes from. Okay, so let's try that. So the app is already created so that it's loaded here on the right. So we have, as usual, real-time feedback of our app. And here we are going to create a data model. And the data model is going to be a weather data model. And inside it we are going to create a data type, and that data type will be a weather record. Okay, so we had an address. So we are going to name that address. If I go back to my Excel file, then we want the temperature. Okay, so let's go here, and temperature is a number. Temperature. What else do we have? We said we want to use the humidity. Okay, let's choose the humidity. It's also a number. Great. And a date. Okay, that's all we need. So here we have our names in our data model, and they differ slightly from the Excel file. Here that's the header, and I have temperature. So we are sensing we're going to need some mapping at some point, but let's keep going and see where we go with this. So inside our app, I want to design something, and here I have an interesting visual component, which is file upload. File upload, if I execute it here, it runs also on this tab. What does it do? If I choose file, it looks for a file selection. You see, I did nothing. I just dropped the component, and I can open it, and here it has the information. Great. Okay, I can refresh to just discard that and reset it to its default value. Okay, great. So I can, you see that's a file picker anyway, so it has no intelligence except to fetch a single or multiple files. Here I have the option to have multiple selection. Okay, great. Let's resize again that marketplace, and here slightly this also. Okay, So here I can configure it to accept XLSX. Let's XLSX, great. Label, we could say load Excel. Great. And we see the feedback here on the right. Okay, that's all I need. And here it's when there is an on change, when we change the selection, we are going to implement that. And here, if I look at, so my search field is a bit small, but I have somewhere read Excel file. Great. It's going to import a project for me. Cool. And what do we have? We have a file. The file comes from, by the way, we can rename that to, let's say, and the Excel file upload has a list of files. Here, I can get the value, but that's a list of files. I just need one. So I'm gonna get first object in list, and that's gonna be the file I selected. Here, I can input that file here. The business object is the type we just defined, weather record. Cool. But here, that's where we have a mapping. So as usual, you know, all bricks have a documentation for them. And here, that's where the mapping is. So the mapping is going to be a map, you know, with the Excel header name mapped to the data type property name. Okay, so we need to define that mapping, and it's a map. So before we can proceed, we need to get back to our project here, and we are going to implement that, and that's, we saw it was an action. You know, we were in an action logic, so we are going to say get Excel weather mapping. So here we need a map. So we need a new map. We instantiate that again. We import a new project, control flow, and here we have the map. So we sense that we need to return that map, and that mapping is going to be of type map. Great. I add it here. Okay, so now I created my map, but I need to now add some mapping. And here for this, if I look for Excel, there is add to Excel XML or mapping here. Okay, so great. So I plug in my control flow, I have my map. The header name, right? We can look at this. The label in the header column of the Excel file. What is it? It is address. Okay, so here I have address. And here it's mapped to my weather record address. Same name in this case. Then I add the next one. So map is in output, becomes the input of the next one. And what else did we want? We said we want the temperature. But the header name of temperature is a bit tricky. It has some weird, unusual characters. And that's the header name. But it's mapped to the temperature. Great. I need two more. So again, control flow, map, header name. We said what? We care about the humidity. Okay, humidity. It's mapped to humidity. Great. And now we want to finish with the date. Okay. Boom. Header name. Was it date? Yes, it's date. Excellent. So here we have the date, and here we pick up the date. We return the mapping, we return the control flow, and here input So we have a mapping being defined, and here we have 4 columns. Okay, you could document that so that if someone wants to know, then it's documented. Okay, so we get back to our application, and here, if I choose my file, and I return here, I have the on change. Great. Then I can access my mapping, get Excel weather mapping. Cool. And that mapping is going to be the input here. Cool. Control flow is plugged in, and I read the Excel file. So what's happening? If we do that, we read the Excel file and we see that it's going to load the file into a list of instances of business type weather record. Cool. So I have that in memory, I have that list in memory. Okay, great, but what we really want is to display that on our screen. So we are going to use a grid. Here again we have a grid, so as we saw in a previous tutorial, we are going to center it. Its width is going to be 100%, and yeah, we design roughly, but we could very well position things properly as we move along today. For now, we want to plug our 2 minimal properties that we already described in previous tutorials, and the model is what? The weather record, and the data is simply the object list. Here we have that. The model is weather record, and we have that list. So we see here on this instantiation, and here again, that we have the 4 columns of our data model. Cool. We don't have all the columns of the Excel file. We have the columns of our data model. Excellent. So normally, if I did things right, and if I load my file here, and I open it, it's displaying my data from the Excel file, and you see how fast it was. Here I have multiple pages, and I just display address, temperature, humidity, and date. The headers match, you know, as we see here in our UI, it matches, you know, by default, it extracted the property names. We could change that, you know, and we could do so much more with the data grid, but that's, you see how fast it was to load an Excel file from a drive into a live application. And by the way, you know, we made a demo on this web page here. We see that it's not loaded on the mobile app. The same functionality goes for a mobile app. Here you load the file, and it's loaded dynamically. So here we see that the design needs to be adapted to make it look as good as it might be on the desktop on a mobile app. Because here we have horizontal scrolling to look at all the columns, which might not be super usable or intuitive, but we have clearly notion of multi-pages here for all the records. Okay, so something interesting, if I refresh my app, everything's going to disappear. And why is that? It's because all the data is loaded into the local instance of the application I'm running. So here it got wiped out, while here it's still active. And if we look at the runtime data here for my weather record, well, I have no information, which confirms the fact that nothing is persisted, right? We loaded an Excel file into the memory in the form of instances of data type, the weather record data type that we defined originally when we started this app. So let's try to save that file as a new Excel file. Maybe you have some logic in your app to grab the weather from a different location, and you upgrade or you update your data or you complete it with new information and you want to save as. So here, let's see, we're gonna have like a text field. So let's name things properly. Records, okay, here, cool. So we are going to move things a bit further down here. And we are going to have a button to say save as. Cool. Okay. And I want to handle the message on click. So on click, I want to save. So there's the read. That's not the one we want. We want to create. Okay, create an Excel file needs some data. So data is easy, right? That's the list of instances. So as usual, it's going to be get object list of our data model. Great. And that's the list. The mapping, we have it. Get Excel weather mapping, that's the one. Okay, so control flow again. Here we have that. We plug in the mapping. Here, the file name. What is it? Haha. So that's the name we have defined in the UI. So we can pick it up from here, file name, and value, get value, and we are going to name it that way. So by the way, we could also, to be nice, let's say concat, and we would concat our value with dot xlsx. Cool. And that's the file name we're going to use. Right. So here I create my Excel file. But if I create my Excel file and if I look at this to be saved or downloaded, so you see it creates an Olympe file to be saved or downloaded. But documentation could be slightly clearer in the sense that this short description implies it's not downloaded. Okay? So that means we need to download the file also. It creates the file in memory, inside the memory of the app. So, okay, we have the file here, and the name, let's reuse the same name we had here. And so we need to connect also the control flow. And that means that now, if I go to my app, archive weather, and I say save as, boom, it downloads the file inside my downloads. Here I have it. And if I open it, it's different from the source file, right? Because we exported only the data that we want. And because we have the same mapping, we find again the same column names we had in the source files. But we extracted only the information we want, and that's only that we exported. Okay, so now you could make the app look a bit nicer and position things properly and spend time on that. That's not the point of this demo, of this tutorial. This tutorial is about how to read and write an Excel file. And you see how fast it was to design such app. So I hope this was useful to you, and have a nice day.